It has been a while since the last time we had a live-action Spider-Man movie in theaters. 5 long, agonizing years of waiting to see Tom Holland back in that spandex on the big screen, and now finally we are closer than ever to it being a brand new day, and you know what that means. I've had 5 years to theorize every possible outcome for this movie, 5 years to spend every waking moment predicting this film's plot to 99% accuracy, 5 years going insane, pondering all those possibilities. So here are my most delusional theories, and also more importantly, some theories I'm actually confident in. So much so that I'm willing to bet all of your lives on it. I already made the deal with the devil, so there's no going back now, but hey, at least if I'm horribly wrong, you can come back to this and make fun of me for it. I'm gonna come right out and say it. I think that MJ and Ned will get their memories back by the end of the movie, and they should. I know it's controversial, but I figured out how they're going to do it in a satisfying way that involves romance, depression, and Jean Grey, which is basically the average day for Scott Summers, but just walk with me for a second here. If there's one thing we know about Brand New Day, it's that Peter Parker is depressed as hell, and God is it beautiful to witness. The movie is doing everything in its power to show us that Peter's isolation is an issue, meaning that the natural conclusion for this character arc is to have him reintroduce himself to MJ and Ned. It's a thematic inevitability and something I'm fully here for. It is the most interesting thing they could do with Peter's character, but also MJ and Ned as we finally get to explore what their lives are like without him. They are going to spend an entire movie earning that decision so that by the end, it feels necessary rather than a cheap move to get back to the status quo. But here's the thing. I don't think it's going to be that straightforward. I got this big theory that I've been cooking up for a while, that Sadie Sink's mystery character is actually Jean Grey. I know. Jean Grey in a Spider-Man movie? I must be crazy, but Sorry, what's that? It's the worst kept secret in Marvel history, and everyone has already accepted this? Shit, I really thought I was breaking new ground here, but at least we're all on the same page now. So yeah, Sadie is obviously playing Jean, but I finally cracked the role she's going to play in the story, I hope. On an emotional level, both her and Peter are in the exact same place, just for very different reasons. Jean has been made an outcast against her will as society shuns her for being a mutant, while Peter willingly chose to be alone. Still, isolation is a common theme between them that I think is going to help them bond. My big theory is that Damage Control will enlist Spider-Man's help to stop Jean, since he's the only person not affected by her powers due to the Spidey sense. They'll paint her as this super terrorist, and Peter's going to believe them because he has no reason not to, up until he actually gets to know Jean thanks to Frank, who's been helping her out. Also, this picture is technically a leak, but don't tell anybody I said that. Don't be a narc, okay? They can explain how Damage Control only wants her because she's a mutant, not because she's actually done anything wrong, as they need to reach a prison quota that was established in Wonder Man.
Our prison is half empty. We're facing significant budget cuts at every office. Every single person here is going to need to look carefully at what you're contributing.
That right there would be enough to show Peter the truth and convince him to help out, but there's probably going to be some big disagreement on how to handle them between Peter and Jean. Prior to getting on the same page, I bet Jean was using the Hulk as a distraction to keep herself safe and escape Damage Control, thus roping Banner into the story and disturbing the equilibrium of balance he thinks he achieved, but I don't think that a fight with the Hulk is going to be the end-all be-all of this movie. Especially because Peter still has his web shooters on when he fights him, and we know he drops those at one point due to the organic webbing, so we can assume that fight happens pretty early on into the movie. Unless, that is, Marvel does another Hulk trailer lie, and they edited them in just to throw me off the scent and render this entire theory useless, but they wouldn't do that, right? The trailer establishes that Jean is going to read Spider-Man's mind. She literally threatens to visit MJ at one point.
Think I might go see how MJ's doing.
But what that means is that she's immediately going to figure out he's Peter Parker and possibly even get some inspiration. Remember that big shockwave we see in the trailer when Jean freezes everyone in the city with her mind except for the Punisher? I've been trying so hard to figure out why she's doing that, and I think I finally got it. Perhaps Jean wants to use her powers to wipe everyone's mind and erase the fact that she ever existed at all, giving herself peace for the first time in her life. To add some narrative tension, what if she gives Peter a choice? If he helps her make that happen, she's willing to give MJ and Ned their memories back. It's the easiest way for Peter to undo the spell on a small scale to get the only part of his life back that he can, but he knows it's wrong. Presenting Peter with that opportunity would allow him a moment to prove his growth and show that after everything he has beautifully suffered through, he knows isolation is unhealthy and prevents Jean from making the same mistake he did. The big secret villain of this movie isn't going to be Jean Grey way. It's not going to be Tombstone or any other character they're not showing in the marketing. Wow, that picture's also illegal. What is wrong with me? It's Peter's depression and self-sabotage. After the events of No Way Home, he has effectively cut himself off from ever being Peter Parker again. He's got no friends, no family, no bitches. He is completely isolated, and it's taking a real toll on him. Not just his plummeting mental health, that's pretty normal for Spider-Man, but the fact that he is literally mutating into someone who is more spider than man. Because of all that trauma, he misinterpreted May's dying words and believes that because he has all this great power, it's now his responsibility to protect his loved ones by leaving their lives to ensure they don't get hurt again, despite how unhealthy that is for everybody involved. Peter Parker has always been his own worst enemy, so I really love the idea of making an entire movie about that. Brand New Day is going to be a massive wake-up call for Peter as he finally realizes that this isolation is taking an unhealthy toll on him both mentally and physically, inspiring him to finally change and open up to people again. Giving him a chance to learn that lesson over the course of the movie and pass it on to Jean would be so powerful, as this film acts as a character study for Peter Parker first and foremost, putting him on this path and fighting his own inner demons to save the day. Sure, Damage Control will be the main antagonist driving the narrative forward, but Peter has to stop himself to fix these problems. And in that same breath, he's also not going to let her bring those memories back for him. He tried to take a shortcut once, and then the entire multiverse almost ended. Peter needs to finally face his fears and open himself back up to MJ and Ned the old-fashioned way. They will get their memories back in this movie, but it's only once Peter proves he's grown and earns their friendship once again. It's the right thing to do for this path they put him on, but also, I do think he and MJ should be endgame. After the humiliation ritual they've been putting him through in the comics, I can't stand another story where he doesn't end up with MJ. I'm sure her current boyfriend, Jabba the Hutt, is a great guy. In fact, I hope he is to twist the knife even more when Peter sees how happy MJ is with him. Honestly, it would be really cool if her boyfriend was Harry Osborn, but they do have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever and make him Paul instead, which would rage bait me so hard that I couldn't help but love it. To get back on track though, Peter needs to open himself up to MJ and be with her again. Embrace all of that messy drama as these characters find each other like they promised. I don't think that things will just go back to the status quo though. That could be really boring. So, my other big theory is that, while MJ's happy to have Peter back in her life, it's Ned who won't forgive him for it. He has been obsessed with finding Spider-Man, literally building a tracker to do it. So I think it would be really interesting if that reveal hurts him more than anything else. Maybe Ned had a really bad time in college that he wasn't posting out of shame and blames Peter for it. You need to have some kind of lasting consequences from part of the spell being undone, and this is it. Even when Peter wins, he still loses. It shakes things up in a really exciting way that could also leave the door open for the funniest hobgoblin of all time down the line. For as much as I love the CEO of sex, there's not much for him to do as Peter's guy in the chair anymore, so let's write him out and bring in someone else for the supporting cast. Hence why I really want Amon to be Harry to complete that trio. You could even have Ned get even more jealous thinking he's been replaced. I especially love that idea because after the Vulture was stolen and taken to the Morbius universe, which is a fate worse than death, this allows us to have a villain out there who knows Peter's secret identity acting as this ticking time bomb waiting to go off. That is a really fun idea you can play around with in the future, but this theory has already gone on for way too long, so I'm gonna control my yapping and move on to the next one because there are still so many to talk about. Let's circle back around to the Hulk, the big green guy. What if he wasn't green? What if we saw the Gray Hulk? It has long been rumored and theorized that, besides seeing both the Professor and Savage Hulk, we may see the other famous alter that the MCU has been too afraid to introduce since Age of Ultron. Despite every single sign pointing in the direction of Marvel bringing in the Grey Hulk, as much as it hurts me to say, I don't think they're going to do it. Not the way we think, at least. Traditionally, that alter is Joe Fixit, a Vegas enforcer dripped out in a pinstripe suit, a silly fedora, and the attitude of a real asshole. Basically, he's the best thing to ever happen to comics, but I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell they introduce Joe in Brand New Day. I know, I'm disappointed about it too, but it would kind of feel out of place when the MCU hasn't introduced any real Hulk alters. Instead, I think we're going to get the Gravage Hulk. He's much better known as the Green Scar Hulk, an infinitely cooler name too, but Gravage is just more fun to say. The best way I can describe him is that he's basically the inverse of Professor Hulk. Actually, no, wait, that would be Banner's body with the Hulk's brain, which I would love to see, but the best way I could describe Gravage Hulk is that he's basically all Hulk, no Banner. With how much this movie is focusing on Spider-Man becoming a monster due to ignoring his problems, it's easy to see how the Hulk fits into the film when that's kind of his whole thing. Especially in the MCU, this version of Banner loves to ignore his problems. He thought that Smart Hulk would be a permanent solution, mixing the brain and the brawn to reach a compromise. But anyone who knows Hulk lore knows all too well that is not how this works. Bruce Banner has dissociative identity disorder. It's something the MCU wouldn't tell you, but I think Brand New Day is going to change that. In the context of the MCU, Savage Hulk is a distinct alter that Bruce has been neglecting. Instead of actually coming to terms with who he is, he used science to shove him in a box to try and get the benefits of his body without fostering that relationship. That's understandably gonna piss a guy off, especially when they're the Hulk. All this is to say that there's a chaos within Banner due to him ignoring his own internal community in the same way Peter is. I think it's going to be disrupted by Jean Grey when she makes Banner's darkest fears come true and turns the Hulk into a weapon by borrowing his body. It's gonna be this big moment where she starts out by controlling the Professor Hulk to fight back against Spider-Man and the Punisher apparently, which is the funniest fight of all time. Get his ass, Frank. But from there, as she realizes how unstable Bruce's mind actually is thanks to him not getting the proper treatment he needs for his DID, her control is going to slip more and more until the Savage Hulk breaks free and comes out for the first time in, what, like 6 to 8 years in the MCU timeline? This is long overdue. There's a very famous moment in the comics where the Hulk asks Jean to psionically shut down Banner, giving Hulk full control of the system and letting his limitless rage boil over. I think Brand New Day is going to adapt this moment, only Jean is going to accidentally do it as she turns Banner's brain off in order to take control, not realizing that the Savage Hulk is still in there as he is way too strong for her to overpower. That would not only shatter everything Banner thought he knew about himself, but also unleash this new Gravage Hulk alter that's been subdued by Banner as a very angry and bitter Hulk has full control. I do think there's a good chance that he is Grey here as a callback to early day Hulk comics when there was a different Grey alter that was more primal, and I would be happy with that. But I also don't want Grey Hulk to be there if it's just a color change and they don't dive into Bruce's DID. It's the most interesting thing about the Hulk, as one of the smartest men in the world is thrust into this new life trying to navigate something that science can't solve, and only therapy can help him accept and learn to live with it. I don't expect Brand New Day to go that far with it, but just using Jean to open the floodgates and start a new arc for Banner as he realizes he needs to properly care for his other alters is more than enough for me, and exactly what I think is going to happen. It's the perfect way to tie Peter, Jean, and Bruce together as they continue to explore the themes of isolation in the most compelling ways possible. Oh, also, speaking of comics they'll probably adapt, I think they're gonna do this famous moment where the Hulk remembers Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Does it make sense? No, not really. Peter and the Savage Hulk have never interacted once in the MCU, and there was never a time where they could retcon it to say they did. By the time Spider-Man was Spider-Manning, Hulk is off in space. There's only a brief window in Infinity War where Savage Hulk is present, but even then he doesn't really come out before Spider-Man dies and the Hulk becomes smart. But Tom Holland did say that one person knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
They know Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is Peter Parker.
Yeah, they know Spider-Man. They just don't know
one person.
Okay.
And there will never be another time in the MCU where they can adapt this panel, so in my eyes, the stars have aligned too well for them to ignore it. Considering how little we know about MCU Hulk because Universal are monsters who hate happiness, the rules surrounding him haven't been established quite yet. My theory is that they'll justify it by saying that even though Savage Hulk was being repressed at the time, due to the mysterious procedure Bruce did off screen, he was still conscious and learned that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. It'll help feed into his anger if he was trapped and basically paralyzed inside Bruce's mind rather than just being asleep for all those years, and give them an excuse to make it happen. Just use that moment as the start of a friendship rather than continuing one. The main reason I think it's going to happen, though, is not just to recreate a comic panel we can all point at, but to reinforce the themes of the film. Peter needs to learn his lesson the hard way about the dangers of isolation. If he's able to directly talk to this Gravage Hulk and learn about how hurt he was being cut off from Banner, it might knock some sense into him about how dangerous it is if he continues to go down that path and ignore being Peter Parker. Sure, Peter's not going to become a colorful rage monster, but he'll be fueling a mutation that makes him less and less human in the same way people see the Hulk. It's a clever way to make them relate to each other, and a conversation Peter couldn't get out of Bruce. Yeah, it doesn't make the most sense on the surface, but when it helps the story like that, I'm more than happy to fudge the reasoning a bit to make it work. Alright, I've spent a lot of time basically trying to predict the plot of the entire movie, so let's change up the pace. No Marvel movie is complete without cameos, so here are my predictions for all the surprise appearances we're gonna see in the film. Up first is Yelena Belova. Not much of a prediction here since she's been rumored for months because Tom Holland's manifestation powers are too strong, and Kevin Feige all but confirmed it himself a few days ago. With a spoiler like that, do you think he has to assassinate himself now? Regardless, from day one, my theory has been that she's going to try and recruit Peter to join the New Avengers with a Z. It would be an insane fumble on her part if she didn't. The New Avengers PR is worse than Spider-Man's, and that says a lot because he is a bum. Despite that, I think the opening montage is going to show just how beloved Spider-Man actually is as they catch us up with Peter over the last 4 years and pay homage to the comics. I really hope they confirm that this shot here of him recreating Amazing Fantasy 15 took place during Thunderbolts, considering how well the color grading matches up. Perhaps that feat of heroism also inspired Yelena to recruit him, as he was the one hero also helping out that day that curiously wasn't on stage with the rest of them. If Yelena wants to restore their PR, it would be a smart move to try and get New York's mascot on the team to try and legitimize them. Also, because of the fact that most of them just punch and shoot, it would help to have a guy who can web people up and catch cars without breaking a sweat. I would love to see Marvel's resident spider-themed heroes finally meet up as Yelena gives Peter an invitation to join the big leagues, only for Peter to turn her down. That would be a really fun full-circle way to show how far Peter has come since Homecoming. Back then, which sounds so weird to say about a movie I grew up with, he turned Tony down but eventually got dragged back into the conflict and was still happy to be christened an Avenger. Now, because of how he's scared of forming literally any attachments, he should turn down working alongside the New Avengers just to show how dedicated he is to isolation. You could even go a step further and make it so he would have to give up his identity to join the team, since they are backed by the government, to show that Peter wouldn't even tell the Avengers who he is anymore. It's a great way to show how much Peter has changed, considering he was just telling anyone his name back in Endgame. Then, once Yelena's turned down, please give me a throwaway line where she says she's gonna have to see if Kate is busy. I miss seeing them together so much, and this reference would go a long way to keep me sane. Also, I needed the obligatory Kate Bishop mention in this video. You know, while we're talking about my favorite characters, I really want Captain America to appear in that montage as well, so I'm making an official prediction to speak it into existence. The last time Sam Wilson interacted with Spider-Man, they were throwing hands at the airport, something he still remembers. Having them reunite over a decade later in-universe would be the funniest thing ever. All I ask is that we get this moment here from the comics recreated during that opening montage as Sam saves Peter when he runs out of web fluid or something, as he just happens to be flying by. Maybe Sam even tries to recruit him as well to show that Peter isn't opening up to anyone, even the real Avengers he could trust easier. Is it likely? No, not at all. But you better goddamn believe I'm delusional enough to hope for it. One thing I am more confident in happening is that we're going to see more villains in that opening montage. So far, we've seen Scorpion, Boomerang, Tarantula, and Ramrod. I know Sony gets off on revealing too much in marketing, but surely there's no way that's everyone involved, right? They better be hiding more because they already got my expectations up, so here are predictions for other villains we're going to see at the start of the film to further establish Spider-Man's rogues gallery. Starting with none other than the I think the Shocker is all but a given, especially because I'm pretty sure you can see his gauntlet in this frame right here, because of course they released a better look at it after I already wrote this script. My best guess is that this Hulk out probably happens in Damage Control's fancy office building, and Peter grabs the gauntlet to try and even the playing field and avoid getting swatted like a bug. So, using the transitive property of mathematics, I've calculated that it means Shocker needs to appear in that opening montage as well. Homecoming already established that he's out there. Well, the second Shocker is. He may have been arrested the last time we saw him, but so was the Scorpion, so let's just hope he finally got out of prison, got his ass into a comic-accurate suit, and then also tried to get revenge on Spider-Man. It is yet another way to show how far Peter has come as he easily disposes of him, but it also gives me the fan service I want by putting him in that quilt costume already. Fan service is a good thing when it serves me, okay? The next characters I have no proof of whatsoever, but you gotta take swings in this business, and I'm taking the fences. I'm willing to bet a small amount of money that we also get an appearance from the Chameleon, a character I embarrassingly forgot was named after a real animal and straight up googled chameleon when getting pictures for the B-roll. He is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains as he challenges Peter on more of a mental level through paranoia. Fun fact, Chameleon was actually the first ever Spider-Man villain. Unless, I guess you count the guy who shot Uncle Ben, but he helped give us Spider-Man, so that's a hero in my eyes. What better way to kick off this brand new era for the character than by tying things back to the very beginning and including Chameleon in the montage. He already exists within the MCU anyway, so you may as well pay that off. Yeah, this bus driver who is part of Fury's crew, that's Dimitri, just Dimitri before becoming the Chameleon, so let's just say he got fired from the team and blames it on Spider-Man to get him in that montage. He's much more likely than this next one anyways, as I think Marvel is finally going to put Big Wheel in a Spider-Man movie. That's right, that Big Wheel, every Spider-Man fan's favorite punchline. If there was ever a time where he could make it into live action, it's right now. Just one quick shot of him in a montage as a throwaway gag would make every Spider-Man fan shoot webs of their own. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Marvel. Don't you dare miss it. The people yearn for Big Wheel. Oh, a little bonus montage prediction for you real quick. I think the movie is going to open with Peter in the No Way Home suit, and then between every single battle during this montage, we're going to see him stitching it back together until we get the brand new day suit by the end, showing that Peter has made these improvements to get where he is. Then when they get to the end of the montage, I think they're going to reveal that everything Peter has been narrating over is just him recapping the last 4 years to Aunt May as he visits her grave. It's a creative in-universe justification for why it's happening and a really sweet way to show how the only friend Peter has in his life is a tombstone. No, not that one. Are you trying to get me sniped? The dead ant one. Thank you, that's much better. Okay, we still have more cameo predictions to make because I receive these theories in my dreams like a prophet receiving visions from an angry god, but I promise I'll make them quick. There's no world where J. Jonah Jameson isn't in this movie. I don't care if J.K. Simmons said he isn't. I don't trust a word that comes out of any Spider-Man actor's mouth anymore. I refuse to believe Marvel wouldn't find a way to include him, and I think I figured out where. At one point in the trailer, we see Peter literally crashing the wedding of John and Lucy. Jonah's son is an astronaut, a man-wolf, but most importantly, he's named John, which might sound like an anticlimactic buildup, but makes me convinced that that is his wedding Spider-Man is crashing into, and Jonah will be a guest there. All they need to do is give us a cameo from Jonah where he calls Spider-Man a menace to his face for ruining his son's wedding. I understand that in a movie where Peter Parker isn't being Peter Parker, it's harder to fit Jonah into the film. Hopefully there's some scene at the end where Peter goes to work for the Daily Bugle, but it's crazy to think that these two characters haven't directly met face to face yet, and I couldn't imagine a better way for this to happen than by Spider-Man destroying his son's wedding and justifying all of his menace takes. Then there's the mystery nobody at Marvel or Sony has even acknowledged yet. The Keith David is in this movie. His silky smooth voiceover was featured in the first teaser as he talked about the life cycle of spiders, and that's the last we heard from him. I don't expect him to have a big role in this movie, but I still crafted the perfect theory for how he's going to fit into it. I believe that Keith David is playing Miles Warren, better known as the Jackal. This alcoholic beverage right here can't be a coincidence. They are teasing him for a reason. But I don't think he'll actually be the Jackal yet. I think he's going to be more of a David Attenborough type, narrating a documentary on the biochemistry and genetics of spiders that Peter watches when trying to figure out what the hell is happening to him. It'll be a fun way to include him in the film and potentially set up a Clone Saga down the line if they're brave enough. But for now, it'll just be some clever world building and an excuse to get Keith David into the movie, which every single film should find. Alright, last cameo prediction now, because I'm already making this movie sound more like a cameo fest than it's actually going to be, and this one is truly out there because I don't even know if it'll work as I start writing this section, but Captain Marvel is going to appear in the movie. Ever since Destin Daniel Cretton met her when making the masterpiece that is Short Term 12, a film that everyone should be legally required to watch, Brie Larson has starred in every single one of his movies. He even found a way to work her into Shang-Chi during a post-credit scene, so surely we're going to see Captain Marvel at some point in the film. Whether it be a news report in the background, a potential crossover in the montage, or another post-credit scene that sets up Doomsday or Secret Wars, I need her, need her in the movie, and I'm putting this in the video so I can say I was right when it happens. There is no way this movie gets made without her in it. Brie is his good luck charm and needs to be there in some form. Not only because I miss seeing Captain Marvel, but also I think Brie Larson deserves to appear in another billion-dollar movie. She rocks, and anyone who says otherwise is not worth talking to. All that theorizing is fun, but I may have to admit defeat on this next one. It's been 4 months since that first teaser dropped, 7 months if you count the leaked one, and I have been losing my mind trying to figure out how the Hand fit into this movie. Punisher makes sense as a cautionary tale of loneliness. Hulk is there to sell tickets and comment on isolation. Even Jean Grey makes sense to parallel Peter. But it's the Hand that confuses me most. What is this ancient ninja clan doing back in New York City after the Defenders dropped a bunch of dragon bones on top of them, a real thing that happened. We know their appearance isn't during the montage because they appear during the prison break sequence when Peter is evolving, so what gives? It makes the least amount of sense and has been driving me crazy. I don't understand it, is what I would say if I was a fucking coward, but I have two theories on how that works, and I'm gonna tell you both of them so I come out on top no matter what. The first is that they aren't actually after Spider-Man, they're after Jean Grey. What does the Hand love more than anything? Kicking Daredevil's ass. But besides that, it's resurrection. Who in the comics has been capable of resurrection thanks to the primordial cosmic entity they're hosting? Jean Grey. Perhaps the Hand catches wind of the fact that someone as powerful as Jean is out there and arrive back in the city to try and kidnap her for themselves to use her power as a weapon and make her the new Black Sky. If this story is going to be about how the world hates Jean because they only see her as dangerous, then I think the Hand's appearance could be a really interesting commentary to reinforce that, as they want to use her as a tool rather than a human being. But also, that feels like a lot to throw in there, especially for a Spider-Man movie, so here's a theory I'm much more confident in. The Hand's placement in the film is too contrived to be a coincidence. They clearly want Spider-Man. But why? What has he done to piss off this demon-worshipping cabal? That is where my disconnect was until I realized that the Hand aren't what's important here. They are simply going to be a means to an end as they work for Tombstone, the other big villain in this film that's been hiding in the shadows, presumably pulling the strings behind everything, and this is how. In the comics, the Hand aren't just an ancient pseudo-religious death cult. They're an ancient pseudo-religious death cult who also wants to make money. At the end of the day, the death cult stuff comes second to making an honest living killing people. They are all about getting that bag. Considering that they have to rebuild the organization from the ground up after being crushed to death by dragon bones, go watch The Defenders, it makes perfect sense for them to be in this position where they'd be working for hire. I think that Tombstone is going to feature in that opening montage as well, but he's not just going to disappear in the same way that someone like Tarantula will. He's gonna want revenge on Spider-Man for messing with his business, and this is how he does it. Tombstone is going to hire the Hand to assassinate Spider-Man. Why go through all that trouble, you might ask? I'm getting to it, be patient. He's a smart guy. He knows that if he sends his regular goons, it's gonna be obvious what's happening. Using the Hand instead will make things harder to trace back to him and thus protect his criminal empire when Spider-Man comes to collect and gets sent on a wild goose chase. Tombstone gets to look competent, we get to see the Hand again, and Spider-Man gets his ass kicked. It is a win for everybody involved. I also really like the inclusion of the Hand here because of how chaotic they are. That prison fight is presumably going to be a big action set piece where everything is going wrong for Peter. Convicts are escaping, Jean is causing chaos, and now the Hand show up to end him. All of that is going to be incredibly overwhelming, with everything in the Spider-Man portion of his life going wrong at the same time. The one singular safe haven he had in life collapsing around him because he took on too much. With all of that pressure weighing down on him, I think this is when Peter finally snaps and his body begins to mutate. I think the prison fight is going to happen in the second act and establish the consequences when Peter loses control. So not only will it be a fun way to add some sauce to the movie, but it's going to go a long way to reinforce the narrative and tie Tombstone into the main plot. And also, a fun little thing about the Hand attacking Spider-Man in prison is that the stars align a little too well for me to not fully believe that Daredevil is in this movie. I don't care what Charlie Cox has to say. He said he wasn't in No Way Home, and lo and behold, his blind ass was right there. Matt Murdock was arrested at the end of Born Again Season 2 after exposing his identity to the world. Peter Parker is in a prison fight against Daredevil's arch enemies, and you want me to think he won't be there? Give me a break. I know this is happening, I just can't prove it yet. Realistically, it probably won't, but that hurts me way too much to admit, so I will live in delusion until the bitter end. When it does happen, I really want to see Peter's reaction to his former lawyer now in prison for crimes as Daredevil. That would be worth the price of admission alone. It would be so surreal to see these two fight side by side to stop the Hand, but after the battle is said and done, I need a moment where Peter tries to let Matt out of prison, only for Matt to refuse as he wants to uphold the law. Classic self-righteous Catholic stuff, as Matt stays true to his beliefs that the system has to work. Plus, with Elektra thankfully making her long-awaited return in Born Again Season 3 next year, it would make sense to start planting those seeds in a quick moment like this as Daredevil fights the Hand and maybe even finds out they have a new leader. I know that's also a lot for a Spider-Man movie to handle, but I would go to prison myself to make this happen. That's how desperate I am to finally see these two fight side by side. You don't understand. This is like a drug to me, and I'm going through withdrawals. That's a normal way to talk about movies, right? Surprisingly, that's not my most insane theory. I've been holding off on this one until the end for all the true believers out there because I have no evidence to back this up. It's all completely on vibes because I think it would be sick as hell and could tie into the narrative in a really exciting way. My crackpot brand new day theory theory is that the Department of Damage Control funded the Scorpion's creation. Let me explain. In the comics, Mac Gargan was a former private investigator hired by J. Jonah Jameson to find out how Peter Parker was able to take such great pictures of Spider-Man. When that didn't work, he jumped to the next most obvious step anyone would, paying thousands of dollars to turn Gargan into the Scorpion in a procedure that ultimately cost him his sanity and made Jonah complicit in creating a supervillain. While I doubt the MCU does any of that, they have a unique opportunity to do something similar and have Damage Control take Jonah's place. My theory is that before Damage Control realized they have no choice but to work with Spider-Man to stop Jean, they saw him as a target themselves. A public menace causing more damage than he's worth and a vigilante breaking the law. If Simon Williams was a problem for them and all he did was exist, Spider-Man is going to be public enemy number 1. With how evil Damage Control has been in the past, literally opening fire on a kid at one point, I honestly think there's a chance they build the Scorpion a supervillain costume to try and stop Spider-Man as some kind of prison release program. It would explain how he got out of jail so easily, how he got the suit, and make the reveal hit even harder when Peter figures out what they're up to. Not only did they lie to him about Jean, they also wanted to lock him up as well. It makes the Scorpion feel like an even bigger deal, they kind of adapt his origin from the comics, and it shows just how antagonistic Damage Control really is. Saying this out loud, it doesn't sound very probable, I will be the first to admit it, but I like this idea so much that I just had to include it in the video. Along with this next part, the last thing I want to predict, the post-credit scene. Spider-Man isn't going to be in Doomsday. Well, at least Tom's Spider-Man won't be, but I still think this movie is going to point things in that direction. It would be crazy for them to outright ignore it. So, my big post-credit scene prediction is that we're going to see an incursion from the street-level perspective. Peter will be going about his day-to-day life actually being Peter Parker again to signify his growth, only to be alerted by his Spidey sense. He doesn't see any immediate danger around him and gets confused until he looks up and sees a planet above him as the sky starts to bleed red in agony. This moment is actually pulled straight from the Spider-Man comics, only it was Miles instead of Peter, but MCU Peter Parker has already stolen a lot from Miles Morales, so what's one more thing? You can even do another F-bomb cutoff gag if you want to keep that tradition alive, as the movie cuts to black with text reading, Spider-Man will return in Secret Wars. It's really important that they give audiences the right expectations. You don't want them to think Tom is going to be in the movie only to show up at the theater and see that the closest thing there is Red Guardian instead. Making it clear that Spider-Man is going to be in Secret Wars is the way to go, and hopefully this post-credit scene will also imply that the events of Brand New Day were happening during Doomsday, hence his absence, as we're now seeing some of the after effects when the incursions begin. That being said, you still do want to give someone a tease for Doomsday. That's why I think the other post-credit scene will be official confirmation that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man will return in Avengers Doomsday. It's been rumored and leaked for almost a year now, so you may as well just bite the bullet and at least make it official in another Spider-Man movie. That just feels right. I think it would be fun if the second post-credit scene opens on that same shot of the planet in the sky, only to pull back and see that our Peter isn't standing there, it's Tobey, as an Earth 96283 title card hits the screen. Let him make a little quip about how he wishes his Earth had the Avengers now, only for one of the TVA's time doors to appear behind him. You could have another character like Loki or Deadpool walk through the door if you really want to get crazy, but I think cutting it off at the door is more than enough. That's when the screen cuts to black and you get another card promising that the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man will return in Avengers Doomsday, considering that was what all the merch called Tobey. Actually, wait, no. Call him Peter 2 instead. That would be so much funnier. That way, Marvel can have their cake and eat it too. Which is a really dumb expression when you think about it, because everyone who has their cake always eats it. But whatever. It sets up Tom's future in Secret Wars, all while giving the audience a reason to watch Doomsday. What more could you possibly want than that? I know some people were hoping for the symbiote to appear in this movie, but save that moment for Secret Wars to pay homage to the comics. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that they can't pass up on. If you want, here's a free idea, Marvel. You could even have the symbiote finally find him on Battleworld, and it's the multiversal hive mind that snaps Peter out of whatever spell Doom has him under. But that's a theory for another time. I've already talked for way too long and my voice is starting to hurt. How long even is this video anyways? 6,767 words? Okay, you gotta be kidding me. God damn it! Well, this video is ruined now, so I'm gonna go ahead and end things there. Why don't you just let me know what you think is gonna happen in Spider-Man Brand New Day? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm gonna smash you like the Hulk. I'm gonna smash you like the Hulk. And now I've made it weird, so just subscribe and forget what happened.